Tell me if you recognize this. You're exhausted, you're gaining weight, you know that something isn't right, so naturally you go to your doctor's office and he or she checks your thyroid, says it's normal, and tells you to go home. 6 months later, you're 5 pounds heavier, you're even more tired, and still your doctor hasn't explained exactly what is going on. But maybe this time they check your glucose and your hemoglobin A1C, and guess what? They're both normal too. Another year goes by, and now you're even heavier, even more deconditioned. Maybe you're waking at 3 in the morning, your brain is racing, and you feel like your metabolism has ground to a halt. Finally, your doctor checks a blood cortisol level, and guess what? He's probably did that incorrectly as well. And if you want to know why exactly this is not the right test, be sure to look at this video. Because cortisol is often the first place where our system starts to fall apart. And in order to improve your weight and your energy and your focus and your overall health, you need to look at 3 hormones collectively. And these 3 hormones are cortisol and insulin and thyroid hormone. By the end of this short video, you are going to understand how these 3 hormones relate to one another and why these 3 are so important to get your health and your longevity back on track. As you know, these 3 hormones rest soundly in the metabolic energy strata of my health systems pyramid. They support so much of our health and our wellness, and this is so important to measure and to monitor and to balance these 3 hormones to fix your energy and your resilience. And by the end of this video, you are going to see how these 3 are all connected. My name is Scott Resnick, and I'm a medical doctor. I'm making the videos on this YouTube channel to simplify complex scientific subjects and to give you agency and a path forward to whole body health without using conventional drugs. Now, on the screen, I'm showing you a yield sign that is common on the trails in Canada. As you can see, bikes need to yield to pedestrians, and both bikes and pedestrians are to yield to bears. There is an order here. And this matters to maintain peace and cooperation on the trails. Cortisol, insulin, and thyroid work in much the same way. These 3 hormones do not act alone. They yield to one another. Now, cortisol is known as our primary stress hormone, and this is true. But the important thing to remember is that our primary stressor has never been being chased by a tiger or, in this case, a bear. It's about having low blood glucose in our bloodstream, secondary to periods of low calorie intake and starvation. And for this reason, cortisol's primary job for our primary stressor is to manage and to maintain our blood sugar, to keep our heart and our brains alive and well. And to do this, it spares no expense. Cortisol gladly breaks down our muscle, our bone, our fat supplies, but also your mood and your immunity to maintain blood glucose levels. Now, in contrast to cortisol, insulin is a growth hormone, and its job is to clear glucose from the bloodstream, opposing the effects of cortisol. So when our tribe killed the elk, when we find the right mango tree, or we caught a fish, we would gorge ourselves, and this extra energy would be stored in our muscles and our bones and our fat supplies by insulin. Insulin stores energy. Cortisol releases it. And with this in mind, it makes perfect sense to have a thermostat to regulate our energy usage. And this is the job of the thyroid gland. When times are good and we're fed, we can run a hotter thyroid state with higher metabolism. But when we get into high cortisol, high stress states, our body moves to a state of hypothyroidism to conserve energy. Now, this is like the diagram with the bike and the pedestrian and the bear. There is a hierarchy and an order. The hormone insulin is influenced strongly by both cortisol and thyroid hormone. Cortisol directly suppresses insulin function. Recall that these 2 hormones have diametrically opposing functions. They're mortal enemies. Stress drives a low thyroid state, which promotes poor insulin function in turn. And here is where our physiology starts to act more like we are pre-diabetic, with weight gain, mood changes, fatigue, low energy. If your thyroid is normal and your A1C is normal, and you still feel like your metabolism is slowing down, you can't look at one hormone in isolation. You need to examine all three. And be sure to measure this system collectively and correctly. Cortisol releases energy. Insulin stores energy, and thyroid sets the body's thermostat. This is where the relationships begin to make sense. So, where do you start? First, watch this video on how to correctly measure cortisol, and then follow all the breadcrumbs to my other videos where I'm going to show you how to measure and interpret insulin and thyroid hormone correctly. Because if you only measure one hormone at a time, you may miss the entire picture. And when you understand how to measure and manage these three hormones, your metabolism, your mood, your mind, your focus, your energy all finally start to make sense and feel better. And if you want a simple place to see where your own health stands, I'd recommend that you start with my functional health assessment, which is listed in the description below. These are 5 simple at-home measurements, 2 minutes of your time, which are going to give you one clear starting point to understand your functional health and to begin to turn around your health and your wellness and your longevity. And I'll see you there.